Thanks, Jessica. Sorry about that. Trouble unmuting myself. So good afternoon, everyone. Thanks very much for joining our webinar today. My name is Philip Sansom. I am the Managing Director for the EMEA operation of a Canadian company called CloudOak. We are very excited to be here today and to be partnering with Complete IT. Today I'm going to take a few minutes just to talk about some of the challenges that many of us, in fact probably most of us, are facing as we start to think about reopening the office as we start to emerge from the COVID-19 lockdown. Sorry, I muted myself. The key points for the agenda today. We're going to be talking about the significant challenge that's facing employers and employees alike when in terms of coming back to the office. The planning aspect of this and how you're going to get the office ready to reopen, and sort of key areas for consideration. Is the office workplace safe? Clearly that's something that's going to be the forefront of everyone's minds as they start to think about coming back into the office. Communication, just going to be a huge part of this project overall, and in terms of how the details and the information that's shared with your staff and your team, in terms of when they come back and how they come back. Then I'm going to talk a little bit about what we call paper-based planning. So that could be things like a spreadsheet, for example, and the challenges that's going to bring, particularly as this is a fast-moving guideline. It's changing as we've all seen pretty much daily at the moment. So paper-based solutions are going to be challenging at best, but that's compounded somewhat by the fact that it's a moving target. And then I'm going to talk to you a little bit about Plan for Continuity, which is our business continuity platform. So on the 10th of May last month, the government began to outline the plans to enable certain sectors in England to return to work. And whilst employees to some extent can still work from home, and they're advised to do so if possible, but for everyone, other members and other parts of the team, then the guidelines from the government continue to emerge in terms of how they're going to get back to the office, and the timing of and the nature of further relaxation of restrictions is also very unclear. Therefore, it's sensible where possible for a business to be able to consider all the options, but also to try and have that capability to move quickly from one scenario to another, and being as agile as they possibly can, as we know how this is fast moving and fast changing. So we look at back to work planning, then the starting point is obviously the creation of an action plan detailing when employees should return to the office, and for most businesses, I think that's going to be a staggered return, in that it's with the social distancing guidelines that currently exist, then it's going to be very difficult for the majority of business to get everyone back in at the beginning. But clearly that communication is absolutely vital for your team. It's who's coming back, when they're coming back. Is your workplace safe for those employees that are coming back? That's going to need to be clear, and everybody's going to be obviously nervous and keen to understand, what steps are being taken, and what the office is going to look like, so that the employee communication, I think, is going to be absolutely key. And then, understanding and supporting an employee's current situation, I think that's going to be important, because there's going to be various concerns, and there's going to be various situations. And I can talk personally about a particular situation, because my wife has recently become pregnant, and she is, I think, she would have been nervous anyway about, like everybody perhaps, about going back to work, but the fact that she's pregnant obviously amplifies that, that concern quite considerably. So she's going to need some guidance and understanding in terms of, when she eventually gets back into the office. So is the workplace safe? Office layout, I think, is a good place to start. That's very likely to look incredibly different. Desks going to be spaced out, obviously, and you're most likely going to be sitting in a different part of the office, certainly in a different place than you were perhaps when you left. Communal areas such as meeting rooms, and we've got things like kitchens and bathrooms. There's going to be a need to be a very clear direction in terms of how those areas are used, how many people, for example, can use the bathroom perhaps at any time. Meeting rooms, I think, in most likely they're going to be unusable unless there's a you're fortunate to have a very large meeting room. And then, so what happens to those meetings? Cleaning of the offices, likely that you're going to need to perhaps increase the frequency of those office cleans, perhaps even upgrade the cleaners, to some degree. And then the hand sanitizer, and not just the hand sanitizer stations, but what's expected of the employees and anyone coming into the office in terms of when they use it. Is it just when they come in? Is it after a period of time? Provision of bottled water, perhaps, that's an option rather than traditional water cooler machines. Things like for the kitchen, your glasses, plates, cutlery are going to need to be put into storage and replaced with disposable cups. Back kitchens and shared fridges and microwaves, etc. That's that's no longer going to be used. So people are going to be asked and expected to perhaps bring in their own food rather than prepare it in the kitchen as they did before. And then visitors, I spoke to a company a couple of days ago who said that there was no chance they weren't allowing any visitors into the building for the foreseeable future other than cleaners. But even then, those the cleaners need some guidelines in terms of what they're going to be doing when, and the care that they take, obviously, as they come into the office. Flexible working hours. There's employers might want to consider allowing employees to change working hours so that they can avoid travel on sort of congested buses and trains, if that's the way they're getting to work, and look at accommodating that situation. So employee communication, just absolutely vital. I think it's it's a reassurance for employees, but also for employers as well. I think that employees are going to need to know and be happy that the guidelines and directions that they've issued have been clearly understood. perhaps even agreed and signed off to. That's going to be very important. Full detail of the entire policy. It's going to be needed right from the beginning, and as I say, it's that confirmation that everything's understood, so there's no misunderstanding in what people can and can't do. And then we talk about who's coming back to the office and when. Many considerations to take into account. It could be that people have been working at home, perhaps living on their own, and obviously are very keen to get back into the office and be working with other people again. But then there's issues with childcare for other people. So lots of considerations there. And I think the support as well for employees that don't come back. It's if it's staggered, then you're going to need to make sure that the people that are perhaps further down the line in terms of coming back into the office, that they need to be updated as well and kept appraised of everything that's going on, and what the guidelines, particularly as they change. So a little bit about paper plans and why they won't work. So the manual creation of a back to work plan specifically is going to be, as we sort of already outlined, it's going to be pretty difficult and challenging to put together. But if you add to that the fact that government guidelines currently change, it would seem almost daily, then it becomes somewhat of a nightmare for a business to keep that in place, and particularly this isn't something that's going to go away in the next few weeks. It's likely to be with us for many months to come. So it's a pretty significant challenge, and different role players, different people are going to be involved in different aspects of this back to work plan. But the key is that everything obviously needs to be completely synced up. Everyone, it needs to be, all the plans and direction needs to be tied, ideally, from a central position. Multiple locations. Again, I talked to a company recently who felt that their head office, they were okay. They said a reasonable chance of getting everything in place and everything together for people coming back, but they were more worried that, or particularly worried about the fact that they had multiple locations, so 4 different offices up and down the country, and it was making sure that everyone was in sync and the message was consistent. Adaptable plans. So as we said, this is changing. It's going to be changing frequently, and we've already seen, yesterday there was a comment that should the social distancing, distance be reduced from 2 meters to 1 meter. I mean, if that happens, clearly that has a pretty significant effect on the plans, on the office layout, and everything to do with it. So, and paper plans are going to struggle in terms of keeping records. It's going to be absolutely key, I think, for every business to have full and accurate details of all the events that have taken place, all the steps that have taken place. If you've got compliance everyone's signed off on, then those details need to be available as well. So yeah, incredibly difficult and challenging, but there is some good news. So I have some details of potentially of a better way. I want to introduce you to something called Plan for Continuity, which is a software platform that's been specifically designed for business continuity and planning challenges, and also specifically designed for the small and medium-sized enterprise businesses. So we are not aware of any other product, any other similar product on the market. The only sort of exclusion would obviously be, you know, a full-scale enterprise type solution, which, you know, along with some consultancy, and you know, it's again, a business told me the other day they had a single plan put together for a ransomware plan that they wanted to implement, and they ended up spending north of £15,000 to get that in place. So very expensive, big, hefty price tags. So a little bit, a bit of an overview of the platform itself. Then we have the creation of plans, which is really easy, and by really easy I mean I can do it, or I've done it, and that's a pretty good example. We have well over 20 templates that are already available straight out the box with Plan for Continuity, and that includes 2 particular plans that are focused on the return to work challenge. But the concept and the idea, you know, they're easy to implement. It's fully web-based, so obviously they're very easy to update and very easy to change. And then we have the process, which is activate, and by activate that means how you can start those plans. And again, this is a true web-based application, so it can be started by anyone, obviously with appropriate rights, but anyone from any device. They don't necessarily need to be at their desktop. They don't have to be in the office. They don't have to be at a PC even. They can do it from the phone. And as well as activate, we have an option called simulate. So it's possible, once those plans have been developed, then you would like, as a business, to test them and make sure that they execute in the way that you want them to. And if not, then obviously you can make the appropriate changes. Or perhaps it's a simulation is something you'd want to do, for the business, perhaps periodically throughout the year, just to make sure that everything's working and people understand what they need to do. Then you have the event itself, and the key is all about automation. So from start to finish, Plan for Continuity takes the entire event and automates absolutely every single aspect. And once you start, then it just rolls right the way through. Events and are able to be viewed obviously in real time from anywhere by anyone, so you can see what's happening, and it's consistent throughout, so everybody sees and understands what's going on. We have a broadcast feature within the platform, so that employers and employees can stay in touch and let you know where they are. And in this situation we had with what we have a plan called an active shooter plan, which is obviously quite focused on the North America market, but in a recent issue there, using the plan, that people were they want to find out where everyone is, and everyone's safe. And it could be that someone's in this case was in the bathroom but had access to their mobile phone and saved any kind of panic by just acknowledging that they were okay. And then we have post incident, so what happens after the event, and it's the ability to track everything, to track all the actions, everything that's happened is all time stamped, and all those details are available for review. So and even perhaps for for an insurance company or someone to at least, it's demonstrable. You have something that you can show them, so they can see what steps were taken and what happened. So I said, it's simple, simple as throwing an acorn. So the Acorn Approach is an acronym which we've developed for Plan for Continuity. But I think it's pretty perfect in terms of the way it outlines the Plan for Continuity solution and the huge value that it offers companies. If we look at A obviously automate, and that the whole idea of this is it's not this isn't paper based, it isn't reliant on someone else, someone doing something. It's just click the start and it happens. Communication, obviously, as we said, is absolutely vital. It's fully integrated email, but also on top of that, we have SMS text messaging abilities as well. So if there's an issue with the internet, for example, or you can't send emails, then text messages. O for orchestrate, which is just full control of the whole workflow from that one centralized console, so it's consistent, everyone's the same. R for report, fully automated reports that just capture every single step of this process, and is available for review, and it's an ability to be able to learn, perhaps for another situation or something else, another consideration. And then we have N. N is neutralize, and the objective here is just to neutralize human error as much as possible, because in any situation, disaster type situation, then people are going to get stressed, people are going to get very difficult to for them to actually be reliant on doing certain steps. So the more that those steps are taken away from and automated as much as possible, the better. So here's just a little snapshot of one of our the 2 back to work plans that I mentioned that are already in the framework. But as I said, the whole idea is that all the plans are fully customizable. We've got, as I say, a number of templates already pre-built and available, but those can each be tweaked and changed as is needed. But if you look at this particular plan, this is focused on the employee compliance side. The idea being that a business is going to need all employees to confirm that they understand the guidelines of the policy that's been issued, and that they sign off and agree to it. And if you look at action 3 here, for example, is a personal COVID-19 status. Has the employee had the virus? Did they self-isolate, or are they in the process of self-isolation? So I spoke earlier about the ability to either simulate or activate a plan in real time via text and email. So this is confirmation on the right here. If you can see that that the back to work employee compliance plan, that's been activated, that's been started. The confirmation below that of who's planning to return to the office, and it could be on a full-time or a part-time basis, and then you have the real-time reporting that's generated throughout the process and provides the business with full visibility of what their staff are going to be doing. And in this case, it's all about coming back to work. But hopefully that gives you an idea of how the system works. So with that, I'm that's the end of my presentation. So Complete IT, if you talk to the wonderful team there, they are going to provide you with any additional information you need about Plan for Continuity, and also some details of a free back to work plan as well. So with that, I'm going to say thank you very much. I think there's a few minutes left, Jessica, so if there's any questions, obviously more than happy to take them all.
Yeah.
You know.
Thank you, Phil. We've got a few questions in already, but if you do have any questions for Phil, if you want to use the Q&A button within the webinar, I will read them out. Okay, so the first one, what is the first thing you would do? You mentioned an action plan, but before that. So I guess they mean before you actually start your planning, what's the first thing you would think about when returning?
Yeah, I think where the action, for me, from what I've talked to business, it's about this stagger, the employees and when they come back, and then that communication. I think that's that's pretty high on the agenda, because I think people, as soon as that office reopens, there's people need to be very clear in terms of who's coming back and who isn't, to start with, at least. And perhaps that communicated the reasons, and so there's a good understanding as to. So I think a lot of people are going to be very keen to get back in.
Okay. What would you say is the single most important thing to consider when returning to the office?
I think the communication. I like the employee compliance. I think is important, because I think if that's dealt with and everybody understands clearly and signs off on what's expected of them, and when they come back into the office, then I think it does two things. It gives the employees themselves some comfort and confidence that that there is a strategy, there is a plan in place. But employers, it's worst case scenario, there is someone comes in with COVID, or and there's then at least you've got something demonstrable. You can demonstrate to anybody that, hey, we took every step we should.
Yeah.
We've covered ourselves and provided comfort for everybody.
Definitely. I think there's so much uncertainty at the moment, isn't there? The more that you can have down in writing, people can understand and can question, the better.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, I mean, my wife is just a perfect example. She's gone from being can't wait to get back to the office to I don't want to go back to the office, and genuinely quite I'm not scared, isn't but nervous, very nervous.
Yeah. Okay, and a couple of people saying how can they get hold of the free plan. So I'll send out an email as normal after this webinar, just with the recording and some more details. And if you'd like access to the free plan, if you just reply to me, and I will get that sorted out for you, go through your technical consultants, and we'll get that all sorted for you. I think, unless there are any more questions, that may be it.
Super. But if there are any more, Jessica, obviously happy to answer them and respond in any way. Yeah.
Perfect. And yeah, if anyone else has any questions after the webinar, again, reply to my email. But thank you everyone for joining us, and thank you very much, Phil.
Pleasure. Thank you very much as well. Thanks.